Welcome to the Shine Away podcast. I'm joined by Cody Parks, the head wrestling coach of the Blue Valley Southwest Timberwolves. And it's a interesting one for me because he's a grad of Minneapolis High School and graduated with my brother Jeff. So this is something I'm really excited to do. Welcome, Cody.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And I tell people the Blakes were the most dangerous neighbors I ever had because you guys were the last people to be driving a three-wheeler. The most dangerous machine on earth, just back there just hitting those jumps.
Yeah, three-wheelers, you don't see those anymore. And the ones you do, you probably want to steer clear.
That was kind of like my biggest memory of us being neighbors was that three-wheeler was going, and I just thought, man, it just seems like it tips over a lot.
Oh man, I remember, I think it was my brother JP had my mom on the back of one out at our farm, and they went over head over heels or backwards because he popped a wheelie and the weight just took him over. And I was like, man,
That's so funny.
well, I guess if mom's going to do it, it's got to be safe, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, why would they sell them to kids?
Yeah.
It wasn't dangerous.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, before we get started into the interview part of this, I want to give you your accolades to everybody because there's a lot of them and you've had an impressive career so far. As I mentioned, Cody is the head wrestling coach at Blue Valley Southwest High School since 2009. And in 2019, he launched the girls program at Blue Valley Southwest. And he used to was the assistant coach at Blue Valley West for wrestling, freshman football, and track from 2003 to 2009. He has since given all that up and focused solely on teaching and coaching. In 2019, he was the KWCA Coach of the Year, 2019 Officials Coach of the Year, a three-time Regional Coach of the Year, and his teams have been the team regional champs from 2017 to 2020 and 2022. He's had the privilege of coaching 3 state champions,
Actually, 13.
13.
Yeah, that was old. I think that was an old stat.
Yeah, 13. Okay, I was gonna say I just watched you this last year, and I think you got 2 in the time I watched you.
Yeah, actually had 3. I had 1 girl and 2 boys. It was probably should have had 5. I'm selfish.
Hey, that's okay. That's what makes you a good coach. But 13 state champions, 8-time EKL champion, and he's had 4 state team trophies: 3rd place twice in 2019 and 2025, and 2nd place twice in 2020 and 2022. And I'm expecting things to continue. I was able to watch you a little bit this last year at 5A State. I was in Wichita, happened to be in there, and so I came over and got to see you. And you do a good job, and your kids, they wrestle pretty inspired, and I love it.
Yeah, they did it. I think they did the impossible. I don't know many times that you only get 5 placers and you get a trophy. 5A's where the bad boys are. I think. I mean, no disrespect to the other divisions, but like you have to put together it's like 10 to win it. 9 will put you close. 8 will at least get you a trophy. And I mean, I've had 5 or 6 and 20 points out, but it was kind of a wild ride. The kids really put a lot of things together at the end, and we just stayed true to what we are, and it was fun. Thirds are the craziest ones. The seconds are they're more sad.
Yeah, they're so close. But well, let's jump backwards real quick before we talk about where you're at currently. As I mentioned, he's a 1997 graduate of Minneapolis High School. I know he was an awesome wrestler there. But what else did you play growing up?
Well, I small town, you do it all, and I don't remember having any choices. So I want to preface that. Everything was seasonal, and there was a sign up that came out for each thing. I did, obviously, I did football. I did track, played baseball. And summer baseball, it's not like baseball is now. They had like OK-18, and then they had other leagues, and then they had we co-op with Big Ten for some baseball. I think I stopped summer baseball when I was like 16, 17. I started working more in the summer. I thought I needed more baseball coverage or something. So, but no, I mean, when I was middle, I was in gymnastics and jump rope class. I think I square danced once. I remember telling my mom, I said a couple of times, like, "Mom, I think I'm the only boy in these classes." She said, "Ah, you'll be fine. Your sister's in there." So I was
Yeah,
in.
it's good for your feet. It helps you with wrestling and all the other sports. It keeps you light on your feet.
I had the benefit of being a big guy, but people don't understand. Like, if freeze tag's the game that's in style, nobody cared if I was fast enough, and nobody waited around for me. So either you get faster and you work on your dodging, or you don't get to play with the other kids. And I think that was the lesson that I learned is you better figure it out, And if we're going out to play pickup basketball and that's not your sport, you better figure it out, or you're gonna stick and watch. And so I just felt like, I always tried to do all the things that everybody was doing, and I never thought about how hard they were or whether I could or couldn't. I just thought if I wanted to play, then I had to learn how to do it.
Well, and that's one of the things I think kids today don't get the pleasure of doing. Everything's so organized, whether it be basketball, wrestling throughout the year, volleyball for the girls, or I mean anything. It's so organized that not a lot of kids just get 15 or 20 kids together and say, "All right, we're going to go run." And if you want to play, you got to, like you say, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. I
And
mean, and we found stuff to do. And I think that's the thing of I think we waited for the snow so we could play snow football. And I don't even think it was football. They just tackling each other. And then I think we found a dirt pile in a couple yards and just whoever could stay on the top the longest. And I just keep thinking like there's a lot of danger I somehow navigated through. And I don't have like a head injury, but maybe I do. But I just thought it was crazy that we found games, and I remember having to wait till like the sun went down before I could go inside in the summer. Like we sat on the porch, like you left, and you had all these things that you could go do, and you had these boundaries. Pretend it's like a boundary. You can go past these boundaries, and if you did, somebody in the neighborhood would say, "Hey, what are you guys doing there?" And call your mom, but we were just out doing stuff, riding bikes. We had flat tires on a bike. It was a miserable experience, but we just, like I said, I just remember always going to do something. Something was organized, and I don't remember parents being around as much.
yeah, we played a lot of stickball at the courts. Take an
Fuck
old
my shit.
broomstick and a tennis ball, and if you hit it over the fence, you is a homer, and if not, you got to run. And then, I tell my kids all the time we have a trampoline here, and it originally came with a net. When we got it when they were younger, I was like, "What's this net stuff?" Like I remember being in the middle, doing crisscross with my feet, holding on, and I have JP and Jeff and any of their friends trying to bounce me and break me, and yeah,
Spring protector wasn't a thing. I tell people all the
no,
time, the spring protector was not
no,
a
no. And I remember getting bounced so high sometimes that I go flying off, and so I had to learn how to land on my feet like a cat, because if not, it's gonna hurt. And I mean I was not a big kid, and so JP and them could sling me pretty good, but
You guys were all baseball players, man. I don't know, whatever you guys had in the water. I just remember, like, I was like, man, I'm never going to be as good as baseball as these guys. It's like, you guys want to go play baseball. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So, like,
um,
go play with you guys. All I was going to do is lose.
oh yeah, JP and Jeff were definitely better at baseball than me. But the one thing they don't have that I have is I have a sign for being a state champion up in Minneapolis. So I kind of I prod him, poke him a little bit about that, and then we argue about who was actually better. And I was like, well, I'm a champion and I have a sign, so I don't know how you argue with that one.
I don't know. I think somebody has to buy the sign. I don't know. I posted on that chat. I was a little nervous about it. Like, I played on a team. We got third in state, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like state peewees. But I don't even know what the leagues are in division, so I couldn't really credit it at all because I mean it was like you still want to say championship. I just never know anymore. Baseball was on the rise in our area. Like now it's everywhere. Everybody has a team and all the way down to almost like the 3-2. I think 2A has it, but that was something. It was just a summer thing, and there were so many leagues, and you could be undefeated and go play a tournament in a area, or you go to play like Cuba, Kansas, and get spanked by 20 runs. They send you home. I never understood the division, but it was some good baseball coming up when we were young.
Yeah, I think there's some pluses and minuses, obviously, to growing up in a small town versus the big city. I mean, big city can provide a lot of different opportunities, but as you mentioned, um, growing up, you you played some basketball. Whereas if you're up here, maybe that was something you would have shied away from just because you're like, well, I don't want it. One, I don't want to risk getting cut as a young kid, or I'm just gonna start focusing in on football and wrestling. And I'm just gonna set those things aside. And I think there's things that each sport can teach you about the other sport, and um, so I do think there is pluses and minuses to both ways. But
I got coached a
yeah,
lot. And I think that's what I got was I got coached a lot. Like, I mean, I had some great like youth coaches. And like at the time, when you're getting coached and you're young, you think, oh, this guy, and then you go like somebody says, hey, where'd you come up with that? You said that to your kids, very inspiring. I was like, man, I think that was my 10-year-old baseball coach, talking about the little things and all these little pieces that all of a sudden you're telling somebody something and you go, I don't think I came up with that. And you go, I think it was my little league coach. And you realize you stole these pieces from these guys because you had such good coaches and you get lucky. Good teachers in
yeah.
Minneapolis. That's some 35-year vet. That's some great teachers and coach. I'm lucky.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I think it takes some time getting away, and you look back and you realize um, that there were some people that were pretty inspirational. And before we get to who inspired you, if there was a coach or coaches that inspired you to get into coaching, I do want to jump back to an accolade that I think I missed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but are you not in the MHS Hall of Fame?
I am. I
I
am.
thought so. Congratulations on that. That's a pretty big deal,
Well,
and
I
I don't know how I
appreciate.
missed that one.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate it. And it's kind of a weird thing. You don't win a state championship growing up. It's like, just that's terrible. And then, they when they contacted me, I started pulling this stuff out, and I said, man, I did do kind of a lot of stuff. In sports, you never do the thing that you want to do more than anything. So everything you accomplished on the way is like garbage in your mind. And then you go back and you look at it and you go, I don't think I was that bad. And then you kind of look at how your stats, when history go, man, thought I was terrible. And, and I think that's the piece of, the Hall of Fame just was kind of, I felt like a culmination of doing all the things and being a part of all the things and as being a coach also having success. And I think that's how they kind of put me in. And, it created a lot of conversation and got a lot of people involved in it. And like I said, even when I accepted the award, I still think like, I think Sean Dren and Nick Johnson might be some of the best wrestlers I've ever seen in high school. And I think that got them a lot of notoriety, and I think it really kind of created a buzz for that, and it really kind of got the coaches, local coaches, involved in saying, "Oh, this Parks bum can get in there. Well, we need to work a little harder to get some of these other guys in." And so, and then I went back and MC all the people, and then the criteria, and it just started like I remember growing up in Minneapolis, Kansas, and I saw these guys on the wall, and I wanted to be those guys. And then in sixth grade, we go up to football games. You're watching Mike McGavran. You're like, oh my gosh. And then there's, Mark Allison. These guys are like heroes. These are like heroes. Some people are like, what's it, sports guy? Was it Bernie Sanders, Michael Jordan? I'm like, I was like those guys. I want to be those guys. The Metzlers, traders of the world that were out there wrestling. I just remember those were my heroes. That's what I was taught in a small town is those are your heroes. And then you want to take your place in there. And then I remember like Cantor, Allison, like all these guys, all these names start flying through my mind. Shea and Eric Shukron and Hurdles, all these guys, and I just wanted to be in their air, and then to think that somebody thought that I was because those are those are my heroes, man. That's like I'm up there with my heroes, so it was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool moment.
You make a great point. That's the one thing I remember growing up as a little kid. I'd go watch the basketball game, and Jamie Goeth and Eric Shoup
Yeah,
and all those guys, they're just flying up and down the
Rumball.
court. Oh yeah, and I was just like, holy cow! So I'd go home on my little goal on my door, and I was Jamie Goeth, I was Eric Shoup, and obviously I'm not Eric Shoup because he's 6'6" or whatever he is, 6'5", and I'm 5'10" on a good day. So didn't ever get to that point, and I can't triple jump like him either. But you know, those guys were at the time. I like those were some of them, like say Mike McGavran and. Uh, but anyway, I didn't.
Yeah,
I can't believe I forget that. But that's very
no,
cool
it's
that
fine.
that you were recognized. So I
Yeah, it was
wanted to
just
throw
very
that in
cool.
there. So
It was a fun
anyway,
thing. That was just a fun thing.
you know, what growing up? when did you feel like, okay, you know, I was a pretty good athlete, but I really want to do this coaching thing? Like, who drove you? Who do you think kind of spurred you on?
Oh my gosh, I think it was if what inspired me, if you say what, I'm gonna specifically. Oh geez, I think it was what started the fire was they had this little flag football league, and me and Matt Harris, they approached he and I and said, "Would you coach these guys in flag football?" And we're like, "Well, when?" And they said, "Well, Saturday." So my senior year, we play a football game on Friday. I'm 18 years old, getting up and driving at 7 or 8 in the morning to meet these. I can't drive these kids. Their parents drive them to flag football. We had practices during the week, and Matt and I are like, well, I'll do offense. I was like, I'll do defense. And it was like my brother's group, and they just didn't have a coach for them. And so we start doing it, and we had like Jerry Shoemaker and Greist, and we go to our first game, and Shoemaker, we just do like toss sweep. Shoemaker is just knocking kids down. Flags throwing it, so we're running. We got that scored a touchdown. He knocked like 6 guys down. I was like the water bowl. I'm like, Coach, you can't do that. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can't shove a guy. You can't do that. Like, we thought you grab the flag. No, there were rules in Salina football. And so me and Matt got flagged a couple of times. Like we just thought this is how it was. So I kind of had a little fun with that. And I think then they found out that I would do it. And so then the summer rolls around and they said, hey, we got these 13 right pitchers and they're not going to get a play. They weren't selected for a team and they're going to be able to play and they're going to have to go in Salina. Would you? And I'm like, what? Like I know baseball, but I don't know baseball. And so I went and got extras. I went and got like Eric Pickrell, John Wright, went and found these guys that I know baseball. I said, look, I can organize this. I can be a voice. I said, but when they say, hey, how do you teach somebody to pitch? It's way out in right field, guys. I was out in right field. So I wouldn't know what to throw, when to throw, or whatever. So the three of us go and we coach this league and we only gave us like 2 practices. We got in late, like we had 2 practices. We take all these guys over there. They take out Dean Evans Stadium's just been out, turf, whatever. We were down 21-0 after the first, and they called the game. And they said, look, you're so bad that we're going to take you out of this league. And we went and we had to play behind some grade school. We might have played on half asphalt after. So we went from Dean Evans to going back, and we went 0-16, and we had fun. And I remember like watching them get better, and I loved it. And their confidence grew, and we had a blast. Like the kids had a blast. So I mean, we got beat every game, but we had a blast. So it comes around the next year, and all the kids want to come back. Hey, Tom's going to school to be a guard tech. Eric's in college. I'm in college, and we said, okay, we'll do it. So we go back. We just started just throwing from base to base. What we'd realized, these guys were kind of either on the bench on a lot of teams. They were a lot of right fielders. No one had ever taught them the game, and then giving them opportunity to play the game. So John was just like one day, he's like, hey, we're going to start throwing 5 feet apart, and then we're going to back up a step. And then when the ball hits the ground, we're going to come together. We probably an hour and a half, we were 5 feet apart. We had 16 kids. We couldn't. And so, and we started. Next thing I know, we're throwing the ball around the base, and we had 8-8. And then we turn out, and some of these guys got really good. And so these other teams asked them to play. And, Corbin Pickrell, and some of these guys, really good ball players, and said, no, we're not going to play with you guys. We're going to go back and play with these guys. They all came back. 5 of them shouldn't have been on our team. They should have been somewhere else and been in Superstar League or whatever. They came back, and we were 12-4. And I just remember during that time period, my mom asked me, she said, what are you going to do? I said, like, what do you mean, what am I going to do? She said, no, like, job, profession. She's like, what do you like to do? And I got real serious. And I remember I told my mom, I really like sitting on the couch and watching sports. Do you think that could be a job? And I said, if they could find something like that, because when you're in a small town, all you're doing, you're busy all the time. So the only time you ever have relaxed is watch a football game on Sundays. So my brain was so like, sports. Like I enjoyed some time off. So, and then I thought, you know what? Watching those guys get better was like the best feeling I ever had. Like when they go, we're not 13 rounds. We're kind of better ball. And that last year, they played and win. They were in a decent league and confidence. They just changed the attitude. And, I learned things from them. And I had a blast. I had a blast. And you go from 21-0, get out of this league to now we don't want to go in. And I think that's a testament of that's that thing I think started me was watching them get better. I don't ever when they're getting better, I don't ever remember much about the score and the record. And somebody had to tell me what the record was. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
it's a
no, that's awesome, and that's what you want out of youth sports, right?
oh
Regardless of whether you're really good or you're not good, they need to have fun. And my kids are in soccer and basketball now, but they did play baseball and some flag football and stuff. And honestly, I think they probably enjoyed flag football the most because it was just fun. Like, but flag football is about as close as kids these days get to just going out and playing. That's it's flag football is pretty basic, and so that's good to hear. So you got that kind of itch at that
yeah.
younger age. Was there a person or people that kind of stoked that fire to continue and help push you to becoming the head coach at Blue Valley Southwest?
Like I said, I alluded to it a little bit. I was so fortunate. I mean, I've been coached by some of the best coaches in the history of Kansas. I've somehow been around them, and by chance or the good Lord put me in the right places at the right time. But I think I knew I wanted to coach and teach somehow. And I think I always thought, you know, maybe I'd coach at a higher level, or football would eventually be my sport, and wrestling was something that I think I was good at without putting too much effort into it. I think. And then when I really kind of put some effort into it, I realized I was gifted at it, and all the things I wanted to be good at, I wasn't necessarily gifted. So I kind of had to embrace the gift when I went and wrestled in college. And I found a different love for it in college. But I'd have to say, my first year, 2 years out, when you come out of college and you're coming out of college wrestling, you should probably not be a head coach. And thank God I wasn't. And I was an assistant. And I remember calling Coach Giles, and I had this, good relationship with him. Tried to get me to call him Jeff. I refused for like this whole life. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm my coach. I'm just going to call you coach. I just thought that was the ultimate respect. And I just could not do it. And I called him one night as assistant. I just said, pretty much all the guys hate me. And I said, and I think it's because they don't want to be as good as me or as good as they should be or whatever. And he laughed. He kind of laughed at me. And I said, what are you laughing at? And he said, not everybody's like you. You remember this is a high school student that wants to be a part of it. He wants to learn. He wants to be around his friends. It's still a game. He said, you're talking about winning it all. He said, I don't think every guy on your team wants to win. I'm just like, what are you talking about? And so, even when I was in college, I used to ask, can you show me this? He's like, whoa, slow down. Not everybody's like you. Maybe I coach 5 guys like you that love it, think you want to do it in college. And I was the only guy that went to college and finished, And so he was kind of like, get these guys, and they're at a certain level, but at the end, you're a high school wrestling coach. And I said, he got real quiet on the phone. He goes, Cody, at some point, it's about relationships. He said, you have to build relationships with these guys and think about what you would want, in your experience if you could do it over again. So I thought to myself, I was making wrestling miserable with these kids. I was. I was the assistant. And I thought to myself, what can I do to make them have the most fun, work super hard, um, and win? And so I think there's this combination of you can't go super hard all the time. You can't not have fun. And at some point, you can say it's not about winning, but they know. So you have to kind of like blend these things together. So began to sit down and talk to my athletes, build relationships with them, find out what made them tick, what things were important to them, what their real goals were. They had such low bar expectations. And I hope I win a couple matches. And I'm going, man, I think you're going to be a state qualifier. And so you start to calibrate with these guys and you get to know each other and they just kind of start growing. And I thought, man, I was building these relationships and they started to change. I started to change. And I had this period of time right after that, 5 or 6 years at Blue Valley West, the greatest time ever. I had the greatest mentor, Randy Lowe, one of the best coaches around, and he was teaching me how to be a head coach. That's what he said. He said, "I'm going to teach you how to be a head coach. I think you can be one day." And he had this 50,000-foot view of program, and he started to show me the ins and outs. Every time, like we had a tough situation in the office with a kid doing something, like I was in the corner. I was in on every conversation and I bounced every idea. I would say, do this. And he'd say, wait, watch this. This is what. And I'm watching, go, man, I would have done the wrong thing. And I realized, like, I'm not ready to be a head coach. And then I thought, if I ever want to be a head coach, I'm having so much fun. Randy had like 3 kids under 5, and he was kind of this 50,000 foot. And I just kind of, started help us, assembling these assistant coaches that were better than me. And then we had this collective thing going, and loved it. And then one day I built a relationship, and he was actually a coach of mine, or he coached with me after, and when I went to Southwest, and then down the road I had to tell him, hey, you need to get a job. He was working the night shift, doing all these things just so we can stay coaching. And he's making 6 figures to that. To tell him, I'm not gonna let you coach, you need to get a job going, but. I remember he lost this match to the state tournament. He'd done every single thing we'd asked him to do the right way, grabbed our team, built our team, brought them together, hardest worker, toughest kid, most wins. He's the guy. And I remember wanting to make a decision, and I didn't because it wasn't my place, at the time. And, whether it was I should or shouldn't, or should or shouldn't, or whoever it was. I remember sitting in that match up here and said, I think I'm ready to take on the responsibility of this. Because if I had to do it over again, I know I would have done this if I was the head coach. And I'd be willing to sacrifice and look that kid in the face and say, hey, we lost because of me, the coach, and you did exactly what I asked you to do the way I asked you to do it. I can't be more and more proud of you than that. And I remember thinking, I want to be a head coach. And it just happened for me like that fast. And then when the school opened within a year or two, I created the opportunity. But it really came down to I wanted to finally make the decision. I wanted to make the call. And I knew to make the call I had to be the guy because that wasn't my job. I did a good job of, I was assistant coach of the year because I can assist the head coach. And I'm not the head coach. And so I felt like my role was growing big and some of the things I was wanting to do would have made it miserable for the current head coach. And so I just said, you know what? New school opened and we made the move. And, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a head coach. But that piece of it was probably my calling. Like I was coaching, enjoying it. Now it's like breathing. That's all I think about.
Yeah. Well,
I know
and
it's a lot.
I love it, and I love the progression that you went through, and that you understood that. Oh, I'm right out. First of all, right, a lot of us come out of college and we want to coach. We think we know everything, and then we realize, oh, we don't know as much as we thought we do, especially about how to handle high school kids. Or I coach middle school. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
handling youth or middle school. Like it's different than when you're doing it on a Saturday after playing your game and you're a high schooler, because people give you some leeway, like, oh, he's a high schooler. And then you get
Right.
into your 20s, and if you make some of those dumb decisions,
It's very
they're
insightful.
not so forgiving.
Yeah, I was just doing it. Like I didn't do. I was doing it and didn't know what I was doing. And it's like at some point you got to study the craft. And it's kind of like saying, well, you had to get out of this the way I did. And I think that was my biggest blessing was you have these guys that can do these things. Doesn't matter that you want them to do all these other things. Okay, well you can't jump steps, and they ain't ready for those things. And so when it's kind of we have a philosophy. Our philosophy of our program it goes program, team, individual. So the program is paramount, then the team, and then the individual. People would say, well, you put the individual last, it's an individual sport. Well, the growth of the individual and to reach their potential through a strong program and a strong team, that individual can achieve at a higher level than they normally would have because you have all the iceberg principle. You're raising everyone up around you. And so that's the big thing of like when you're doing all this, you have to think about my ego has to be removed. That's the big thing. And when I made it not about me, I had the most success I've made. Any mistake I've ever made in coaching was I made it about me, not about the kids, not about the team, not about the program. That was the biggest lesson I learned. That took me about 5 minutes to do is to look at the kid and say, I was wrong. I'm not sure what we're supposed to do. I'm gonna figure it out. Uh, I'm not sure how I can help you right at this moment. But I'm not gonna think it's to figure it out. And that level of honesty, people would say, "Well, you kind of told them you didn't know." They know. So like you're affirming that they do know what's going on and you are telling the truth and that you do care. It's when you lie or you blow smoke, they go, it's not true. I mean, I think kids, you don't give kids enough credit. So I always try to give them credit. I always try to give them respect before they ever gave me respect. And I think that was one of my key things that I did. When I was teaching, I went to a lot of things too. I was visible. I'm a very visible.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about your program, team, individual, and I think that goes into kind of why I wanted to reach out to you about this is because I wanted to hear why does Cody Parks continue to do what he does, and everything you just said kind of goes into that it's a passion of yours to one in an individual sport where yes you are an individual, you're out on the mat one on one, but as it's still a team. I mean, you
Yeah.
you talked about when we were earlier in there. I don't know if we were recording yet or not, but about uh, you've gotten some second and thirds as a team, and you're striving for that championship as a team because that goes to show that throughout the year, you know, we collectively put in the time, put in the effort, and did it. And obviously, to get that team, you're going to have some individual champions in second place. Like place, you're going to place some
Yeah.
individuals, but you want to do it there. And so is is the is why you continue to do it is because you to see the growth of the kids. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Is that
I think, I do. I mean, I think people think it's like a joke. I say, they always go, how's it going? What you're doing does changing lives. I believe it. 100%. 100% I believe I'm changing lives. There's not a minute that I don't know the power of my words, the power of the things that I say. That's why I do it. And to allude to what you're talking about, I was like, there's nothing worse than being a state champion on a team and nobody else placed. There's nothing worse because yes, you had success, but you're around all your partners' failures, and not failures as in you take place, but as in everybody is down and you're the only person that's up. And coaches in wrestling have hidden in corners and lived off one state placer and one state champion. And one of the things I talked to Randy, about when we were building when I started at West, it was a new program. They were 32nd out of 30. We had 70 kids out for wrestling. That's unbelievable. It's insane. So it's like sometimes you have guys quit and you don't know their name yet. And so I remember trying to explain like to him, and we were going back and forth trying to think, okay, where do we go with this? We had two studs, really good kids. I said, we could teach to them, but these guys have never wrestled. And I said, so I think if you think about it from my logical perspective is, let's take a 2-and-2 approach. You got guys that are gonna win the tournament. You got two guys win the tournament, that's 50 points. And I thought if we go 2-and-2 because we can fill a lineup with 12 other guys, and I gave him the breakdown of points. I said we might be top five. And we started thinking, okay, so how do we make kids good enough to win two matches at a tournament? Maybe one. Maybe all we got to do is throw one guy to his back. And we started thinking about how to score points at each weight class. And then that kind of developed into our philosophy of like, it bothers me. If I only had one state champ, and that was what I had every year, I would be devastated, literally devastated. Our goal is to collectively score points at every weight class. That's our goal. So when we sit down and we think about how we make the line, I don't do wrestle off. That's a I don't know. I mean, they don't do football offs. They don't do baseball offs. They don't do basketball offs. All right. Somebody looks at him and goes, "That's the best guy. That's the hardest worker. That guy knows what's going on. I'm gonna put that guy in charge for all these other mini adults because that's the captain. Because a team captain to us is the head coach when the head coach isn't around. And you go, I could make a lineup and tell you the 15 best wrestlers are. People were under the impression that they all had to weigh what they did in their weight class. My guys that got second in state, I don't know if one of those guys weighed that. I think they were all underweight 10 pounds, underweight 5. I think we had one guy cutting. We just said, these are the 14 best guys. And you go, boom. Because there's a thing in athletics that they do to you. This is how I always tell you, how do you know if you got a good coach or not? I said, if your coach says you need to go get bigger, stronger, faster in order to start, play, or win, you probably don't have a very good coach. You're probably not very good. I said, because if somebody says the only thing that you can't physically control genetically, you need to change about yourself in order to be good at sports, means you're not very good at sports. You need to get better at sports. And so I'm always sometimes like, I laugh. Some of my buddies are football coaches. One of my good friends is Tony Crow. He's high head coach right now, and he's all over the place. And we always joke about, like, how many guys you tell to get bigger and stronger today? Just the guys that aren't going to play? I said, because no one has ever took the bench press of the starting quarterback, the height of the starting quarterback, the weight of the starting quarterback, and the speed of the starting quarterback and said, you know what, you're not these things. They go, that's the best player. You don't tell the best player to grow faster or get stronger. And so what we talk about is, what is functional coaching? And it's like, you have these process goals. How do I get to be a state champion? Well, you got to get up bottom, and so you got to be able to get a first period to 0-0. So if you get pinned in 30 seconds, that probably means you stood in front of the guy. So we start with circling, and you got to master these small things. And I think all sports in general are like that. You're not all those things. So what do you have that we can make you into a player? Instead of, I don't think there's anything worse in the world than telling an athlete, here's the things you're not. I think you say, these are things you can do really well. We need to turn this into a position, a move, a skill. A coach described it to me one time. He said, all your guys are fundamentally sound, but they all kind of do something different. And he said, they all have these, like, you can tell you have these rules and these process that you do in positions, but I don't know which guy's the single leg, which guy's the double leg. I don't know which guy. I said, because, a guy can't shoot a double leg. I'm not going to spend 40 years of his career shooting something he can't do. So he says, I can spin in a circle really fast. And I go, okay, we're going to turn that into a move and you're score. He's like, Coach, I can hop on my leg for an hour. It's like, all right, we're turning that into points. So we took the approach of, these are the guys we got. I tell them the first day of every practice, every year I've ever coached, nobody's coming in here to save us. I'm not waiting until next year. I said, there is no rebuilding year. We're going to win with the team in this room and doing the things that we do in this room. And that's the end of it. And if we can get a little bit better each day, there's years I didn't win state championships. There's years we didn't place and get a trophy. But I thought we got a little bit better every year. And so I was excited about that. And so I think there's these things you just have to throw out the window. I have never been the person who says, this is what I don't have. I tell the kids all the time, I don't look over the fence. The grass is not greener on the other side. I water my own yard. And I take care of my own grass. I take care of my own things. I've had people and coaches talk good about me, bad about me. And probably my weakness is I don't address it. I let them talk all they want. I tell the kids all the time, I don't care. I care about what's in this room. I care about these kids. I care about these coaches. I care about this practice, this drill, this minute. If we can maximize that, we're going to be pretty good. And I know I threw a lot of my kind of philosophy out there, but I just think these kids, we want to just take the cream off the top and say, like, armchair quarterback. I heard a guy once tell me, hey, on football field, I can X and O anybody, any coach. I'm like, well, you're 0-6. And he said, well, that's the kids. I said, but you're responsible for teaching. I said, kids rise to the level of the expectation. And my biggest toxic trait is when a kid loses, I point the finger at myself. I say, what did I do wrong? So when I sit there at the state tournament and somebody loses, they go 0 and 2. I went 0 and 2. I did the wrong thing. I didn't teach them the right thing. I didn't find out what they're good at. I didn't inspire. I missed the. And I know that's not always true. Matt Harris told me that about 5 years ago. And, he got third state basketball. I take it, to heart. He said, "When was the last time you put a singlet on?" I said, "You're talking about you felt like you lost, and it wasn't them." And I said, "Well, I just it's who I am." He said, "But, don't forget, like, I'm sure they had a good experience, you had a good experience, all that stuff. They don't let you wrestle anymore." And I said, "Well, that's probably why it's so maddening." So we've had a lot of good conversations, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of good conversations with great coaches. And so when you're talking about building a program, I think the worst thing you could do is tell the kids, "Oh, we can't do this. We're not this." No, got to do these things. Or practice these things. And then sometimes in a week, we find out if we didn't do very well. Football's scary because you get like 9 chances. Wrestling, you get like 50. You can lose 46 of them. And, you win 3 matches at regionals, 3 matches at state, and you second or third. So,
Yeah.
so you get all these opportunities, and that's how we treat it. I don't know how to ramble a little bit,
No,
but
I loved hearing it, and it actually had me wanting to go in like 19 different directions with questions. But before one of the ones that I do, so it sounds like you look at a kid, say you got a heavyweight, and you see what he or she can do. How do you then, when they're going up into the state tournament or in regional championship, how do you decide how you're going to? I'm not that familiar with wrestling. I love watching it because I love the one-on-one, and it's me versus that other person, and on this day I'm either better or I'm not. And
yeah.
but I
And
know there has to be tactics, and like, maybe I can't. You said maybe you don't shoot double leg or things like so. How do you go? Like, do you scout in wrestling? Do you watch film? Like,
um, uh,
football. Like, you hear football
I'll,
coaches talk about all the time they spend
I don't know. I
watching
got
film and
got
stuff.
a lot of secrets, and I don't know. I don't know who's going to watch this, but I think one of my biggest secrets is I think I know before I know, and so I just like I got some of this stuff is not me, so I always like cite my source who I stole it from. And I listened to Cale Sanderson. He's kind of the mastermind behind Penn State. Everybody thinks it's Cale Sanderson. It's Cody Sanderson. It's the brother. And so he was on talking about like, what are you going to do for your weight classes when the season rolls around? And he kind of chuckled. He goes, we're 9 months out now from the national tournament. We kind of have already slotted where we're going to go. We know who probably the top 5 or 6 in there. We're working to beat those guys. And so some of the things I know, what the other guys do. So I'm around the sport all the time. And so I have a good idea what guys coming back can do and what they can't. And so when you have a guy in his progression, let's say he's a state qualifier, it's really there's a couple things. When you're a state qualifier, there's just a couple of skills that you have to build. You got to be able to ride. You got to get up bottom, and you have to be able to defend a shot at least to the point at 0-0, or be able to make it tied. I mean, that's just some skills. And those things are easy drills, and then they're deficient in some spot because you get taken down, and then there's a guy with a tattoo and a mustache that I couldn't stout, and it's probably gonna take me down. And so that you run into things like that. We By the time somebody thinks they know what we do, we've already worked on the next progression. If somebody says, "Oh, all their guys do this," well, we know that you know that, and you're going to do it. And that's how we're going to beat you. And so we beat you by doing what we do really, really well all the time, and then we make variations. We assume, hey, you're the best at this. Someone's going to take that. What are we going to do? Because we can't be a one trick. And what we find is a really, really good RV. Somebody's going to take that away. And so if I have a great reps on his feet, I may never even let him practice on his feet this season. He may be on the mat every day, getting off bottom, breaking somebody down, or turning. I think that he's the best at. They're the best at. Yes, you need practice and all that stuff. I'm not disregarding like, oh, we're never practice. I'm saying the focus, the match is going to be here. It's going to be on the bottom, on the top, or on your feet. And so you kind of take the match as you go through the year and say, these positions we see all the time losing. That's easy with each guy. Film does that. You can film. And I've watched very little film. And I have coaches that do it. Like they'll give me feedback. Like they'll type stuff up, say this guy this guy this. And then my biggest skill is you don't do this. I can make a drill for that guy for that moment. Three guys rotate. But I know that's a long answer. You can't draw. Wrestling's the only thing you can't. You can, on Friday or Thursday night at the state tournament, you start wrestling Friday. You gotta get 6 in the morning. We're practicing 2-day tournaments all year, so you got to get up. You can't draw up any place. What's done is done. I tell the kids like what we do in the summer and November, January is what we're going to do at the state tournament. So in December, if we're not doing the right things, we lost way before the state tournament. You don't lose the state tournament. You lost in the room, you lost at the meets, you lost along the way. And so the process program, so what we do every day prepares us for state tournament. Our system, we always talk about if it doesn't score points, I got is 50-0, then why are we doing it? And so we make wrestling so simple. Knock the other kid down. And I know it's more sophisticated than that, but we have a way of lining it out. We know what the progression of each guy is. We kind of see, the weight class we think he might be at. But I don't even tell guys what weight class to go. They just kind of show up, and then usually 14 days, like I don't make them make their weight class until like after Christmas. Like we don't, power punching through steel is more important than how light you are. So we value, speed, power over being the biggest guy at the weight class. I don't know much people that do that. If you're doing that, you're kind of, I mean, if you're having kids cut weight, like, yes, we will have a guy cut weight, but he is cutting weight, he's eating 2,200 calories, drinking all the water you want, and he's losing weight. And so that's what we call cutting weight. We don't, and so, and whether that has cost me time, cost me regional, cost me this, whatever. We have had a great team. We've had a great atmosphere, great kids that are healthy. Happy, healthy kids aren't sick at the state tournament. It's a long season. So I just value different things than other people. And I never think about like this moment you have to wrestle your best or like stuff like that. Stuff like that. It's like you do it all year long. And then when you get close to like it's more of these are the things you do. This is where we want to put the match. And we've had adversity before. Here's how we responded along the way because we have data. Like you said, what happened when this happened last time? And if something happens to a guy 5 times, that's the coach's fault. That's my job. And I've always told our coaches, like, we want to go to a meet and every single guy get beat by the same thing. That means we're doing what we're supposed to do. It's when everybody gets beat by something different at some different position, it just means we're not good at anything. And we need to get good at something and then move on. And I'll spend 5 days in one position, one move, and I won't go on. People are trying to get a lot of moves in. Like, we'll just try to do really well at the simple things you do. It's the old Bruce Lee principle. One move 10,000 times. But it's hard. It's really hard. And then you got to take the kids, you got to get them to buy into, we're at 9,000. We got to keep going. There's a lot of our successes from buy-in and people buying into the system and just being able to quantify and make it smaller. It's still, we got to knock the other guy down. It didn't work. Let's get together. You and I, me and the athlete, me and the coach, and say, how can we do that? And when I wrestled, and I tell people all the time, I had a headgear on, everybody screaming in the gym. I could hear one voice like it was an earpiece, and that was Coach Giles. He was talking to me. It was us against him. And I thought I had the best coach in the state of Kansas that cared about me, and he wasn't gonna look. I was scared, still there, and I think that's what I attracted my kids is like we're going to do this. This whole team, this whole program, like you got us all here. And if it goes bad, we're going to be here. If it goes good, we're going to be here. But either way, we're going to be here for it. And so guys build a lot of confidence, a lot of strength. I do a lot of little tiny things other coaches don't think matter. I think every guy's got to look the same. When you look bad, you wrestle bad. There's just little things that you do that add up. And we had a lot of success we went back as a team and looked at here's all the little things that we did, and each little thing added up to this amount of points, and we won by half. And it was inches. We valued those inches. And so, when you're building a team and you're programming, these are the guys I got. You got to win with those guys. And I have coaches, I've gotten rid of coaches who say, oh, we don't have the kids. And that's a crime. I said, we don't say that here. We don't have the coaches. I said, because that's you. And I said, I tell my coach, you point the finger at yourself first before you point it at anybody else. What you find is you can do something, or we're just not on the same. Like I said, it goes back to the first thing Coach Giles told me was sometimes about relationships. And he said, we have got to get on the same. We see something he's doing as a negative. He doesn't get it. I think there's a vocab. We're thinking it's this, and he's thinking it's this, because I don't think anybody's that disrespectful or not paying attention or doesn't care. And what we find out is he thought we meant one thing and the other, and then we bring it together. Holy cow, we got something. Relationships are a big part of what we do, and so even my staff is strategic. You can't have a bunch of I'm a yeller, and I'm a high intensity guy. You can't have 7 of those guys. Those guys that make everybody miserable. You got to have some quiet storms. You got to have a guy that'll put a arm around a guy. You got to have a guy that'll appropriately confront your behavior in front of everybody. You got to have somebody like me that knows what I do. We always talk about we have the soup going right now. And added another coach. It's one of my former wrestlers. He's going to be a great head coach. I don't know how long I keep him, but you start stirring that soup on you, and the guys that oh my gosh, he's such a good part of the soup. He's not the whole soup, but man, this is a good thing. And I think we just have an approach that just don't care what other people think, and we take ego out of it. I mean, geez, I bet people they don't like our style. It's like somebody said our style is boring. It's like watching paint dry. And I said, they still raise your hand.
Winning's winning.
Yeah.
Kids want to win. Like that's why they put the time and the effort in there. And I like how you use the progression throughout the year. You try to stay okay. You're really proficient at this already. So let's put you in some situations of things that you aren't so proficient at early. So you have to work on them in live when the bullets are flying and you're trying to win this match. And so you get to the state tournament and you get in that position. I've been here. I know what to do now. Um, let's
You know about
transition.
club sports. You practice all the time when you have a club sport.
Not enough, right?
And see, and I had a period where we were going to too many games and we're practicing enough. So by the time I got back to say, hey, we're bad at this, I couldn't get them all in the same place to practice them. So now I fight for, okay, I'm looking at the schedule and I'm going, that's too much. We need to practice because there's this period of time you can get better. And we wouldn't have had them snow days, and we wouldn't have had because we had these snow days and we lost stuff. We had like 10 or 15 straight days of practice. We had some stuff on the weekend, but we jumped levels just to practice. We were able to see this thing over and over again. And even how you design your program, because I've really focused on my program. Seniors are my biggest focus. And like I said, people go, hey, you should have been doing this. But no, I was like, my seniors have invested. They bought in. They believe in it. They are my primary concern. So I corner a lot more seniors. Freshmen don't corner as much. I got guys that they just know how to talk to them as they're going to go through these ups and downs, this roller coaster. And I'm Coach Parks, so I kind of create anxiety of like, man, I don't want to let Coach Parks down. And I'm a little more animated. It could be negative for like a freshman. And not that I don't, but they don't even know what they don't know. and they're probably sometimes they're pretty good, sometimes they're not, and they have to get better. And so I got to be careful of who I corner, but I corner my seniors a lot, so I don't see all my guys wrestling. I go to tournament, we go to tournaments, there's 20 maps now. I might have cornered 5 guys and saw their matches, and I know exactly what to do, but that leaves a lot. That leaves a lot. There's 9 other guys roaming around that I haven't seen. And so I'm trying to take feedback. So even our vocab and the way we communicate, if we don't have a system, which we have a system of what we teach and how we teach, where do we teach it, all that stuff. So when I'm communicating with coach, I haven't seen the film, but they know exactly the vocab to tell me what went wrong. They don't say, well, the ref, no, the ref never did anything to anybody. And then, don't come, oh, he was strong. It's like, first off, don't come and give me the other guy's stats. And I tell guys all the time, don't tell me how strong he was. Don't tell me how good or how fast he was. I said, I can't control that. Okay. You can control you. I said, we can make you better. But I said, you didn't lose because the other guy's stronger and faster. We lost because we didn't do fundamental things, or he was so fundamentally sound that he overcame what we thought was high. And thank goodness he did that, because now we can make what we thought was good better. And so we just like we communicate so well as a group and our kids, and part of what we do, you have to do community service hours in our kids club program, coaching kids. I mean, I've had a state champ like try to stuff hours in and to the wire. They want to state championship and barely let her. They were like 3 days away. They weren't going to let her because service is part of it, whether you like it or not. And what they do is they go down to the coach of the kids club. And yeah, these guys are looking everywhere. They ain't paying attention. I told them to do this. Get down on one knee, and he got on his elbow and spun. And I laugh and I go, "You do the exact same thing in high school." No, I don't. No, I'm not like that. You're in practice, they turn and doing something. Said, "So you're not like that?" And they look at me and go, "You're right. I was wrong. I'm exactly like that." And so you have to teach them how to listen and learn. And so they get to interact with how frustrating it is. And they'll always say, "I don't ever want to be a coach." They get out and coach kids club, and they're like, "I never want to be a coach." But you got to learn. And how do you communicate with somebody that you keep saying right and they're moving left, and your brain says, "Well, I should scream at them." And you go, "No, you shouldn't." When somebody doesn't know something and you're a teacher, you teach them. And that's it. And we turn it into, like I said, these weird ego things. We communicate really well. Definitely have a system. Coaches will say they have the same practice. I love what a coach says. I did the same practice on the same day every this thing moves. On the death of any organization is this is the way we've always done it. And we're never going to change. I'm going to have a group that is great on the mat. I'm not doing all those mat practices that I did last year. We're progressing. I have the same guys on the mat that I had last year. And we're deficient in this area, so we move on. So some days I know before I get there. Some days I have the whole week mapped out of everything I want to do, and it might take 3 weeks. But I know what I want to do based on what I see, and you have the end goal in mind. And there's just certain steps on the way to state championship you can't skip. And we've been able to fundamentally explain it to kids that you can be the worst wrestler on the team, and you can be an undefeated state champ like Cordell Dewar, because he was the worst wrestler on the team, and he was an undefeated state champ. I show them the stats. I show people his year by year break, and I show them his investment on his way of his volume. And then people will say, "Well, he lived with you." And I said, "Well, we never we talk about wrestling from 3 to 5. You win a state championship from 5 to 3 with all your habits. In bed on time, take care of your body, homework's done. You're eliminating stress. If you're a dumpster fire from 5 to 3, it rolls onto the mat. Those emotions, those stresses, all those things. You get sick, get taken off the mat for detention. My best teams and academic state champs. If you look at part of our program is take absentees, your grades, and your wrestling record, like percentage, they'll all add up. If you're a D at school and you're a D at attendance, you're probably a D wrestler. And so we have turned that into, to be on varsity, It's hard. I make it hard. Just being on varsity. But if you have all your other things in line, being on varsity is easy. And so what we find is we spend more time helping them organize their life to be successful in wrestling. And that's a lot of work. And guys don't want to do that. Coaches in general want to do that. And they want to show the move. The kids get it. And then they go win. And the coach goes, look what I did. And I tell the kids all the time, I might die here. I'm not here for 4 years. So I still got to make humans. I believe I'm making humans. And I believe that, I've had guys who were junior wrestlers be my team captains. And the thing about wrestling, I tell these guys, you could do everything right every single day. You could do it perfect every single day. You could do everything I ever asked you to do, and you might not win the wrestling match that you want to win. But I promise you, because athletics is this much of your life, that thing that you take when your life's over, like your best moment ever might be when you're a dad. Your best moment, the minute you win, all the things, all the hard work paid off, you might have got a raise. You may have provided for your family. You might have been at your lowest moment, have a comeback story. Like I tell them all the time, don't get to pick when you want to wrestle your best match. So we try to wrestle your best all the time. That way, if it does come out there's something you want to win, you wrestled your best, trained your best. That's the best chance you had. But we don't draw plays. State tournament's the only place you can't draw plays. It's won or lost a long time ago with a lot of habits. We've just been able to quantify those habits. We read books like Seven Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and we go and say, yeah, you say you want to win a state championship, but what's your daily process goal to win a state championship? And I had a guy take that on, and he said, you're good at these three things. I think you can win with these three things, but we got to get better at these because it has to work against our guy. So he stayed after every day. He took all my coaches, and they tried to start. He wouldn't leave any 30 things, and he had to pick one of my coaches up, put him down, all this stuff, and he did the three things that he was going to hit in the match to be a state winner. That's what we talked about every single day, and he stayed after it. He couldn't get kids to stay. Kids would leave, and it's like the coach would be like, he's dying, and he wouldn't. He'd come in the office. He'd come down like knocking on the coach's locker, going, "Hey, I gotta get these 30 things in." Well, he bought into the book, and my coach then went down there, got fourth in state, and he said it's because I did those things, did those extra things when everybody left, and you're teaching kids to do those things. Like I can give you a lot of things. Really, every state champ that I've ever hugged, I said you did it because they did. They did the work. I didn't run a sprint. But they did the move. They came. I was twirling a whistle at 6 a.m. So, that's what you're trying to teach them is like, you can do this. It will not be easy, but you can do it if you do these things. And what you find out is these things start becoming really, really hard. And that's when you really need to be there. And I always show up. That's my biggest thing is I'm always there. I say, if you want to do something, be there every step of the way. You want to come in extra, I'll come in. You want to come in the summer extra, I'll come in. But you got to come in too. Because if I tell you to, it's not the same. Cordell said one time, I don't blast him on your A-Prep. He said, I want to be an NFL football player. I said, well, right now you live 4 days a week. And he said, well, that's when the scheduled time is. I said, you want 100% of your life to create this 100% income, and you're barely lifting 50% of the time? I said, you can say, but here's what you have to do. Like, I have keys to the weight room. I have a badge. We can go up 7 days a week if you want. And then you start going, man, that'd be kind of hard. You did say you wanted to be in the NFL. And so some of those things, we say them, but we as adults don't create actionable items. Okay, I'll lift 7 days a week. No one's going to let me in the school. So you gotta be careful because sometimes I've been in here 7 days a week. But I think that's that piece of it's not this fantasy. Thing. It is a lot of hard work, and for some people, it is a lot more hard work. I tell the kids all the time, I was not great. I had to work my butt off to be good. Just to be good, I had to work harder than most people because I couldn't do half the moves everybody else. I could do just a couple of things, and I was really good at it. And it took a lot of work, and I had to do every single tiny thing that the guys that maybe beat me didn't do, just to get beat by them. And so you try to look at it in a way that like, whatever you're trying to achieve in athletics is not impossible, but it's going to be a lot of work. Maybe I've told guys like I got two guys. I got a guy wrestling right now. He's a UCM torn. Guys could be an All American. Got everything, and he got second. And he was just devastated. About second state. He's just devastated. I said, look, your best wrestling's ahead of you. I'm sorry. I said, do you trade this all All American? And he's like, in a second. I said, I'll be there when you because he's getting All American. You write it in stone, And it's one of those things where you did everything right, better than most, and you were great, and I beat you. And then a year later in college, he followed that guy. So I said, your best wrestling's coming. This is just a moment. Yes, it's important to you, but look where it's going to take you. And that's what's funny is I tell them, lose all your matches for 3 years to be a state champ. And they go, yeah. And I said, well, still got 2 years to go. I said, because you told me you'd come here every day, you lose every match. But you're going to work as hard as you can. And so, they don't realize there's no montage music playing like the Rocky movie. The montage is really hard.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's some good stuff. So
I hijacked your whole deal.
I don't know. People don't want to hear me. I could sit here and talk all day, so that would be very boring. You're the reason people are going to listen. So want to wrap up here with some quick hitters. Who are the top 5 wrestlers coached by
Oh,
Cody
I
Parks?
can't. No, I can't. No, I'm serious. Like, if any of them see this, my phone would not stop. I'm telling you, and every one of them would tell me, "But you know that I would smash him." You know. They're like, oh my god, I can't. I'm telling you, I have coached because I had to bring this up because I thought maybe you're gonna ask me something like this, and so I brought up like these stats. I start reading these names, and I'm like, I still talk to these guys. Like I still have relationships with these guys. I went to some of their weddings over the summer. I'm like, I can't. I mean, I could tell you who the guys had the most wins, but I've had guys that I played golf with one of my former or played top golf with one of my former wrestlers, Devin Tate. He qualified for state, won the state place, and he was a 7 seed in regionals. They only took 4, and he was getting matched up against the IFB 4 times. And I thought I could manipulate the seeds. I thought my ego, I could change the bracket, make him not have to wrestle that guy, somehow just qualify for state. They pretty much told me, sit down, shut up, kid. I was a young coach. Sit down, shut up. These are the rules. I just remember all being all sad. And I remember thinking, I lost the seeding meeting, so the guy's not going to win. And went out there, and he wrestled one of the best matches of my entire career. He was 7 seed. I beat the 3 seed. Thought I could get him to sneak him in through the 4. And I thought to myself, everything that we did and the way we coached was right. I didn't believe in him at the time, and he believed in himself. And that moment gave me belief in then what we were doing all that time. Even though we'd gotten beat by that guy, we were getting so much better that on the 4th time we beat him. And we went to state, knocked that guy out. And one of the greatest coaching moments ever, he was devastated about his career. He thought I was disappointed in him, devastated. But he still coaches for me now. And so it's hard for me to say what are my 5 best. I mean, Brandon Madden is up. If Brandon Madden wrestled for any other team, he probably has the most wins in Kansas history. And he has like 160. And I took him to some of the toughest tournaments. A guy told me one time, your tournament, Your schedule's too tough. I took him to some of the toughest tournaments. He beat some of the baddest dudes, but he lost. I don't know if he lost one or two matches in Kansas. He lost them all out of state. I think he has like 12 losses. I think like 8 of them are out of state. And so, um, I just have a gosh, it's just such a list. One of my coaches, and then if they're gonna make me pick, I would pick my nephew just because, and they'd go after him. They wouldn't go after me. They'd mess with him. So, but no, gosh,
All
it's
right,
just so long.
let's go the other way then. Give me
All
some
right,
of the like 3 or 4 or 5 of the best kids that you've seen wrestle that were not coached by you. Some of the kids that you
best
had to
kids
coach
I've seen
against
wrestle not by me.
that
Oh
you've
gosh,
had to actually try to coach against and try to figure out a way to help your kids beat them.
oh my gosh. I feel like that's like every year. It's like
And you
it's like
cannot
being it's like
use
being in a foxhole. You're throwing and shooting. It's kind of like I don't know if I've been impressed with a guy like Tyler Caldwell, like way back in my West days. I was like, I don't know, anybody beats this guy. Guy that beat one of my state runner ups when I was at West, Joseph Cornejo. I remember like you can practice all you want, you can do every right. That guy just so strong, grab and just crank you right to your back, break your spine. There's nothing you can do to stop him. So there's impressive people like that. I watched Kendrick Maple, one of the best wrestlers in Kansas history. Boaz Beard, those are Goddard guys. Like those guys were like I told kids sometimes like, hey, I wrestled in college. I'm not sure if I could pin him. I could beat him, but I don't know if I could pin him. I couldn't beat those guys. But no, those were some guys. But like you stand there and go, man, thank goodness that wasn't my guy out there. Those
so
guys are tough.
I think I saw your heavyweight last year upset an undefeated kid to win the state championship. If I'm correct, wasn't I think he
Um,
was undefeated. Was he the
no, I
heavyweight or was he the weight class below that?
can't remember. Like sometimes I don't. Oh gosh, I'm so bad at that. Like I don't think Tad was state champ, and I know beat that guy early in the year.
He
We
was a
had
bigger guy.
I think we had. I gotta think. I don't know. It might have been the semis, maybe 1-0. I can't remember. My heavyweight just like he's I can talk to about him for an hour. He's that guy's a giant ninja, and
He did
I,
win it,
I can't
right?
go with him because he hurt me.
He did win it.
Yeah, my heavyweight won it, and
Yeah.
then my
So my question
175 pounder
is,
won it. What?
could could you in your senior year of high school beat him?
No, no, I lost to Jeff Moore.
What? Well, that guy also was nuts.
Yeah, the kids were like, "Oh, you got pinned in the finals like that, 22 seconds." I was like, "Oh, you're that bad?" I was like, "Oh, let's back this trend up." I was number 2 in the state. He was number 1 in the country, and he won the Dapper Dan.
Yeah, yeah. He was different.
Well, here's a good story about that. So Jeff, he beat you in high school. You hate his guts.
Hmm.
Well, um, he had all kinds of accolades in college or whatever. Well, I coach his like sons on my team, and the other kids are in my program. So it's kind of like somebody's like, "Well, it's tough to be a coach." I said, "Well, tough being a coach." Well, the guy that beat the crap out of me shows up, cheers for his kid. I got to see the guy every day. I mean, and he's a great guy. Like we get along great. He is great support of the program. Kid's tough. It's just kind of somehow, full circle. Well, I wouldn't have wrestled in college if I wouldn't have lost that match. And I tell the kids all the time, it's like, if I wouldn't have lost those 2 state finals matches, I wouldn't be here coaching you and have the relationship I have with you in this program. I wouldn't be here because I wasn't going to wrestle. But I was embarrassed by that moment. And I thought, well, it was on TV and everybody watched it. And I thought, I can't let that pin my way to the finals. And I can't let that be the last image or the only image of anybody had me to be beat. Nobody cared any of the things I'd done up to that. That bothered me. So I decided that I just didn't feel like that was going to be my last match. And if I wouldn't have, if I'd have lost I lost by 1 point in an All American match. I was 1 point away from the All American. And if I'd have done that, Some of those things have catapulted me into way other successful. And I know those were transformative moments. And I look at all those things were supposed to happen because, like I said, I'm here and I coach Jeff Boyle's son, and um, we have a good relationship. And you go, I wouldn't be here. And I think that's the thing about sports. And so yeah, I tell someone, hey, what's this loss going to do for us? What's this win going to do? Like, in the end of the day, it's a movement. My nephew taught me so much about sport. He was my second state champion, and he won a state championship, dramatic fashion. It's the craziest thing ever. I said, hey, do you want to go to like Buffalo Wild Wings, watch the movie today? Let's go celebrate. He goes, yeah, I can't. I said, what? He said, I got to study for Spanish test. I said, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, when is it? Oh, it's like a week from now. I'm like, you nerd. Because it wasn't who he was. He was all these things were important, but he wasn't a little bit tall because he won. Nobody liked him more. Half the kids at school didn't know the one. Never even seen him run. He just him. And I just thought it was so indicative of what we're trying to preach of like, you are what you do. This guy's studying for a Spanish test. Week from now, and he just won a state championship. You're going, hey, what are you wings? I was like, feel dumb for even asking. But and I've coached guys like that, and so that's what's so much fun. Like picking one, I have such great relationships with all these guys. Seth, the wrestler from Missouri. I got a guy, Hayden Mills. Hayden Mills, I yelled at Hayden Mills when he was my own son, and he crazily, sorry, you got a little light shut off, but he's yelling at me like in the office. He wouldn't yell in front of kids. He'd get mad at me. Oh, you're too nice to these guys. What are you talking about? So I coach some characters, and the thing that has been our guiding light of success is my best wrestler on the mat has been my best leader. That's it. I mean, that's what it is. The best wrestler doing all the right things has always been my leader. And as we've struggled as a team, then we've struggled with that. But every time I think I lose a guy or a girl or whatever, and I think how are we gonna replace it, two come up. You know, we had guys in here 4 days a week, all through the summer. 16 guys showing up trying to, and you just every day. Some of it's somebody said, "Don't you want a break?" I said, "Well, we don't." And that's the thing is, I try to fan the flames of enthusiasm, and they fan mine. And so I love doing it. I learn something from all of them. They teach me things about life, and I teach them things. And so I think I can do it as long as I have that. Now, this generation is pushing me a little bit. Figuring out how to coach them. This generation, I'm not saying my group or this generation does not want to be leaders. Because when you were like either in COVID, there wasn't leadership opportunities. And leadership opportunities are really hard to find. That's what I think Pat Fitzgerald's told me. He was a weights coach over there. He's like peeking through the window, and we were doing this weights thing. Pat, what are you doing? And he said, well, you got to give them an opportunity to lead. I said, we got to yell at them about being leaders. But we don't let them lead. And it's like, so I told them they had to go do a warm up, and here's what they had to do. And now they're up there. You guys are doing it. Everybody's following suit. They got a couple of guys out of line, but they got them back in, and nothing crazy happened. So he's looking through the window because he gave them an opportunity to be a leader. And I thought, like, where these guys had an opportunity to be a leader, and then what is their definition of a leader? MTV quarterback screams in your face, and then you throw a touchdown. Oh, that guy's a jerk. Nobody wants to be around that guy. Teaching leadership has become difficult. Modeling model leadership, but that doesn't mean they want to do. There's a lot of pressure that comes with being the guy that says, "Hey, we don't do that here." We've had guys like that here forever, and now we're kind of rebuilding that leadership culture. So if I'd say what got away from me, if we weren't successful in other people's eyes, it would have been because I didn't develop leaders like I should have, or I didn't understand this generation. And so as long as I can keep talking to them, as long as I keep developing, as long as they keep showing up to get better and be excited about it, I'll keep doing it. But when they stop caring, they don't, none of this stuff I'm talking about works. I'll go do something else. But right now, I love it. And like I said, I had to look up that. I don't even know. I I got someone the other day, and I don't even know. And they was like, "Hey, that's really cool." It's like, "Yeah, it was," but like, that's not why I do it. I think I throw it in a drawer, and I thought someday when I'm old and crazy, I'll get this thing out. I tell my daughter, "Look how awesome your dad and she'll be like, "That's what is that for?" And I go, "I don't even know."
Yeah. Well, Cody, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time. And
Yeah.
I'm
Well, I hope nobody watches it because there's a lot of good stuff in here. And if somebody watches it, they might get better, or somebody's gonna tell me it's like, "Hey, you're doing it wrong," and then I'll get better. Um,
I hope
Thanks
either
for
one
having
of those happen. That's the goal. Is hopefully somebody does watch it and takes what works for them and their program, and maybe they give you some feedback that helps your program. That's and maybe nobody watches it. Maybe it's
me.
just
Yeah,
me and you.
yeah.
And I'm
Can I say one? Can I say one more thing? The reason I did this is because you kind of asked me for a quote
hmm
about like Chaz Hawk
uh-huh.
and like Nick Johnson. Nick Johnson's one of the greatest wrestlers. Me and him get in the same room. We start getting really animated and really loud, and people start like moving furniture back. We get all excited. I don't even think like his wife. I don't think she lets us get in the same room. She's like, "It's too dangerous." She comes in, "Why are you guys yelling?" I'm like, "We're not yelling. We're talking." And it's like we get too excited. I don't know if we can be around each other. We get really excited. Chaz probably is most instrumental in my career besides Coach Giles. I had gone my freshman year. It didn't go so well. At the end, I was embarrassed. I didn't even qualify. I didn't qualify for state tournament. Chaz, I watched Chaz do every single thing right on that team as a senior. He did everything right. He kind of got bad things happen to him at the end. And I remember like he was like third in state, and I don't think he placed. And I was so sad for him, devastated for him. And I remember they were trying to get me, "Hey, you got kids club after the season." I don't want to have kids club. I just had the worst thing. First kids club practice, I show up, and Chaz is there. And the kids club. He's 18 years old. He's done wrestling. He's there. And I was like, I was the biggest guy, and he's like, "I'm gonna wrestle." I remember having these conversations like, "Yeah, I just don't think I'm any good, and I can't get anybody to like be my partner or work with me." And those 6 weeks or whatever, he was my partner every day. He taught me. He cared about me. He breathed life back into me. He breathed hope into me. And I would, I don't know if I was gonna wrestle again in high school because I was just like, "Oh, this is a tough road to hoe, and I am not the guy." But he gave me a couple things, taught me a couple tricks, won some matches with it, and he was really excited for me. And I remember thinking, like, this guy was the coolest guy ever. He was a senior, and he was winning all the matches, and now I'm a freshman, and I suck. And he was just like, oh my gosh. And I just think now, like, being a part of Minneapolis wrestling, those kids are so lucky because he did that. I didn't know what he was doing. That moment, the finding moment, finding somebody that cared so much to help me and had no business. I wasn't good enough to get help, but he came in there and he was like 150 pounds and I was like 210 pounds. And he's just in there, just thrown around. I'm laying on him. And he just came there every day to say, "You ready to get better?" He was excited. I don't know. That was the first time I'd kind of, had this down slide and the guy picked me up. And so when people talk about Chaz, and I've coached with a lot of great guys, I've coached a lot of guys, but sometimes it's like you got to have the right people around your kids. And I think that's what everybody wants. If all you care about is winning, who's that guy? But I'm talking about you want somebody that's going to mold your life, mold your kids. That Chaz Hawks, like that guy. So like when you asked me to say something nice about him, like that's kind of what got me to. I think this is something I want to be a part of because that guy, man, I love that guy. I get around him sometimes. I just like, I start talking to him, I start crying because I might start thinking him. I know there's these moments that are supposed to happen in life, any of these people, Just watch what he's doing now. And I'm just so proud of him and happy for him. He's doing just such a great job. You know, it's 3A wrestling's hard. Bad coaching at is so hard. There's so many. You can be so good, and there's 100 schools, 150 guys you haven't wrestled yet. So you think you're the best. I said other people say two guys from Sacred Heart Co-op or something. Never seen this guy before in my life. And so I think that's such a hard thing. Whereas in 5A, pretty much 36 guys, and you can narrow some of it down when the regionals open. So you have a narrow focus. But I don't know. I wanted to make sure that I said something about him because he's just awesome. He was just instrumental in getting me down this road. There's just moments where you think, I don't think I should do this. It's maybe not for me. Maybe I need to take a medicine or something. Somebody grabs you, you go, this guy cared. And then you're like, I can't let this guy down. This guy cared. Anyway, I, I, I like to speak at him. And that's kind of why I got on. I did it because I felt like you're talking about my guy. You
Hey,
know, yeah,
what you just said about Chaz, I think the same thing about him and Nick, and I'm super excited. We're still trying to, you know, how hard it was for you and I to try to find a time, and it's just two of us, and then you throw the
yeah,
fact we're trying to get all three of us on the same call or same podcast
yeah,
recording, and we're gonna make it happen because I do think that the Minneapolis Bennington wrestling program has a couple of special guys right there leading their program,
yeah,
and they're helping. Obviously, they were fortunate to coach both their kids, or some of their kids, and I know Nick's got his daughter in there right now, and
that's the most stressful thing you'll ever do in your life. Like my nephew, my nephew, I took Cody chip with my nephew, and he was so bad, and I was trying to convince him that he needed to be a soccer player. And then he taught me a lot about toughness. He inspired me. And at the same time, I never had so much anxiety in my life. Like, you're
Mhm.
sitting there in the chair going, oh, I failed as a human being, even though I didn't. That's the tough stuff. And then you're like, I'm going to be meaner to them because I want the kids to think I like them more. And then you're like, kids are like, why are you being so mean to him? You're not mean to anybody like that. It's like, that'll teach you how to coach. Coaching
Mhm.
your own kid and your own family, that teaches you how to coach.
Yeah,
Now, I like
I'm
those
getting
guys.
joy from that
They're
right
great
now.
guys. I enjoy them.
Yeah, no, I agree. They are great guys, and we're gonna find the time, and um, I'll ask them about Cody Parks, and I think they'll say the same type of thing that you just said about both of them. I know that you've sent some wrestlers back to the Giles Invitational, and I know that they appreciate that because that gives them some different blood to kind of have their kids go against, and just some different flavors. So, well,
Yeah.
Cody, I appreciate everything, and best of luck this year.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. I think you're doing the right thing. I think there's just not enough coaches' education or even just insight to look at it different. I looked the other day. There's just about 150 assistant coaches or head coaching jobs open, and Kansas they just keep rolling up because you can't just show up, show them stuff. It's like you gotta be in it with them. You know what I mean? You may be in them with 4 years. They may take 8. People don't see that far down the road. And all I can tell you as a coach is keep do what you're doing, keep learning, and keep growing those relationships. I'm telling you, I had the best summer. It's about like 4 or 5 at my wrestler's wedding, and mom said it's got to be happy for you. And I said, this is my life's work. I told her this is my life's work. These guys are my life's work. I still talk to them. Like these guys don't get to be failures. They looked out in the audience and saw me sitting there because I told them I'll be there and I'll be part of your life. And it doesn't stop after this. This is just a microcosm. It's a small thing, and you invested in me, and I'll invest in you. And I got a group of like 10 of them running their own companies, and they're telling me their successes, and I'm going, now you need to be a donor. Stuff like that. But these guys, I'm
Give a little
telling you, I'm
back.
so fortunate. And I just like I said, I look at the Menums and the Verhages and the Nitzels and the Dennisons and all these guys that I coach that just, it changed my life. That's why I keep doing it. I get to the best version of me. And sometimes I feel bad if they got coached by me when I was the first 5 years. I probably should give my money back. But I had to learn. And I think that's how I can inspire, from this, the other coaches. Just learn. Don't be we'll get locked into some way of thinking. Coaching the way that you were coached and teaching the way that you were taught can be dangerous. I think there's core principles in there, but you have to look at it from the kid's perspective. Are they getting a great experience, a tough experience? Are they getting the top tier? Are they getting there going, you know what? I might not have been the best guy. My team was really good. My coaches were awesome, and they all cared about me. And that's what guys that have quit my program say. It just wasn't for me, but the coaches cared. They cared about all that stuff. So that's the important stuff, and people don't realize how important it is. Like I said, these last 5 or 6 years, a lot of years I did a lot of. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And then coaching later in life, you can see kids out there. Like I said, that's my life's work when they're up there getting married. When they got kids and they're sending them picture of their kids and tell them that they're working on their stand up when they're 1 year old. So I'll coach them. Appreciate you getting me on here.
Yep. Thanks, Cody.
Sport wrestling. I just hope you.
I've got a couple. I'm going to talk to Nick and Chaz, as mentioned, and I got Coach Vieira at DeSoto that's going to come on. So I'm trying to
He's
navigate this wrestling world.
He's done some good work. Man, I've been really impressed. I thought he could do it. But I think he's doing it a little faster than I thought. And you look at what he's doing as a whole. It's a good coach. I tune in for that one.
Well, we're gonna try to get it done here in the next couple of weeks because he also is coaching freshman football and football takes up a lot of time. So
yeah, freshman football is I got out of the freshman football gig. There was a lot of standing around for me. And then it became like freeze tag on turf. And I was kind of like, it's like, baking on the turf. It's 110 degrees and your feet are hot. And I just realized, maybe I'm not tough enough. And I love football. I still thought Chiefs were going to call me 5 years ago. I thought, man, I can run a couple routes. Would I be a tight end? I'm delusional. Football is my favorite. That's how kids all the time. Football, I never wanted to be a wrestler or wrestling coach. Like I said, I was just lucky and gifted at it, and I finally just said, you know what, you got to embrace the gift. And my mom, I was 6, 7 years old, pushing me out of the car, and I was crying, saying I'm not going to go. And she's like, yes, you are. And I'm crying, and she drove off. Then she found out I was sleeping on the mat. I was going in and sleeping. And then I woke up one time on the edge of the mat, and she was sitting there. And then she came to every practice after that. And I remember trying to redshirt in the odd years because I was 2 years down to get smashed. And she just kept making me go back. My grandma and some of the people were like, man, he's probably quit. He's losing a lot. She goes, well, he loves doing it. I don't care if it goes 0-2. I'll take him to do it. So my mom tried bribing me to win sometimes. I wasn't good till the end. Man, I was good till the end. I spent a lot. There's some bad years. I think that's the part where kids don't do that much anymore in sports. In 8th grade, when I was going to 9th grade, they said, are you going to wrestle or play basketball in high school? I said, they don't play basketball. Giles leans in the locker room and goes, no, you're not. You're wrestling. I literally thought I was going to do it, and then he told me no, and I thought, oh, you can't. Like, I can't. He said no. People were like, you can do your own. No, he said no. And I was genuinely going to do it. He genuinely said no. I said, okay. So I went and wrestled. I told you, I had a lot of weird moments. I was different.
That you listen to him on that one.
He
you
said
had a
I
pretty
didn't.
Good basketball class as well. And
I know, and that's why I thought I got in so much in mop-up
fit
time. Yeah, I got up in there in mop-up time. I played like 3 quarters. Those guys would press, and they were up 40 to 9 at halftime of a game, and I got in, or like in the first quarter, and I got in. I played 3 quarters. They got mad at me in the locker room, like your brother and Harris and Tall Wolf. They're like, "You gotta play more than all of us. This is bull." I said, "Stop being so good. If you don't like it, you don't want to see me play. Then stop being good." They were so good all the time. I'm telling you, all the time. I was a point guard. I could dribble with both hands. The biggest point guard you ever seen. Not the ball up, so I could dribble with both hands and my head up. And oh man, those guys so mad at me because I played because they were good. Stop being good. All right. We're going to get this thing off. I'll never stop. You just have to click
Th-
the button.
Thanks, man.
I'll talk to you later.